Transition Tuesday. I'm Jane. This is Joe. Coping with COVID. Well, it's not really a transition topic, but it kind of is. It's kind of, we've been dealing with quarantining, in-home quarantining. Joe's dad, my husband Jerry, tested positive. Started feeling kind of went and got the at-home test, and bingo, it was positive. Joe and I tested 3 days later. We weren't feeling bad. We were negative. But we've had to make some adjustments because we don't want anyone else to catch it, and we certainly didn't want to catch it from Dad. Joe has, breathing issues, so it's a little bit scary. He's doing fine. This is day 10. So according to the CDC, isolation, use a separate a bedroom bath if possible, and avoid contact. Stay with about 6 feet away. Don't share household items, cups, utensils, towels, things like that. So we've been doing that for 10 days. And honestly, this is how I feel about what to do when somebody in your family gets sick. This is my transition plan for coping with COVID. It's just crazy. In the meantime, I've been hearing about people in my community. Unfortunately, we've had some families lose a loved one to COVID this week. It seems like as soon as we, thought, in the heydays of July that we were gonna be able to return to normal, here we are again with going back to looking at quarantining. There have been some schools that have had to close because of numbers of people who've been sick, and they can't get subs and they can't get bus drivers, and it's definitely a challenging time. So planning is a good thing. What are you gonna do if somebody in your family tests positive? We already kind of knew what to do because a while back I thought I had COVID and got tested. We have a basement, we're very fortunate, so we can kind of sequester the person downstairs. Now, if it turns out that Joe gets COVID, then we'll just have to treat it like a hospital, and we'll have to mask up and help Joe, and hopefully keep him out of the hospital. Hospital symptoms. We do have a little pulse oximeter. You put that little thing on your finger, and it tells you what your oxygen level, your blood oxygen level is. If it's below 90, that's a cause for concern. Of course, with Joe, sometimes because of how he clenches his hands, it's hard to tell. You look for other things. You look for blue cast in the person's lips, fingers. That means they're not getting enough oxygen. If they're gasping for breath, that's a pretty good indicator, although Joe gasps a lot. So you kind of have to know the person, but high fever, things like that. Of course, the hospitals are totally full right now, and so, our goal was to stay out of the hospital and treat what we could at home. Poor Jerry was left to his own devices down in the basement, and I became the prison warden for 10 days. But, this is our new normal, our new reality. And being a caregiver of a person like Joe, and having to do it all by myself, I really sympathize with single moms right now, or single dads, because when it's all on you, whew, we, sleeping, eating, showering, self-care in general becomes really challenging in those situations. So, it's a tricky time. So I just wanted to go over, just basic CDC guidance. COVID symptoms appear within 2 to 14 days of exposure. And then once you believe you have been exposed, you can get tested within 3 to 5 days. They've changed the guidance since the Delta variant came along. It looks like the Delta variant is more contagious, but it also shows up faster after exposure. So a test within 3 to 5 days is possible. And I'll tell you, the at-home tests that you can buy now are really helpful, because then you don't have that 3-day waiting period. You pretty much know right then and there if you are testing positive or negative. Especially if you're someone who's symptom-free but has been exposed, and you've been vaccinated. It's just kind of good, because the big question then, if you're not feeling sick, is will you pass it on to someone else? The questions about, should I go to work? Should I send my child to school? All of those things are big, ginormous questions that go back to my graph here, not knowing what to do. So you just try to use some common sense, the CDC guidance, at-home tests if you can possibly do that. We kept Joe home from school. Actually, there was another student in his class who tested positive. And so the school, because we have a lot of medically fragile children in Joe's class, the school district guidance was to tell the parents, do what you think is best for your child. And since we had some exposure ourselves, we decided to keep Joe out of school. So, but the questions outnumber the answers by far. So CDC says if you have been exposed and have negative tests with no symptoms, it really is best to do 7 days of isolation. So we have done that. And, if you have had COVID-19, you can be around others after 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and 24 hours with no fever, unmedicated. In other words, you've had no fever and you haven't taken ibuprofen or, any kind of fever-reducing medication. And your symptoms are improving. So, all of those factors come into play. So, I don't have a whole lot of advice for you other than to look at the CDC website. There is tons of information there. Joe, what do you think about all this? Has it been fun hanging out with me all by yourself while Dad's been quarantined? Have we had fun? Yes or no? Have we had fun? Was it boring being at home? Was it boring being stuck at home? Yes. Yep, you've heard it from the man. It was kind of boring, kind of challenging. I hope all of you stay healthy, and we will see you next time.